Alright, moving on to the second 25 mark question. Now, I've had a read of it. So, revenue maximization is the most realistic business objective, then profit maximization for many businesses. This is a very dull 25 mark question. I'm going to go through it briefly, as if I was doing this paper, I feel like 90% of the students should do tax, and then a few weird students who probably are on like e-grades probably going to do this question. But if you do this question, that's your choice. But I just don't think there's much to speak about. The main thing you are obviously going to use and manipulate as much as possible is going to be your cost/revenue diagram, and you will pick up obviously a few marks for just showing where revenue maximization is, where the profit maximization is. Let's draw them on. So, of course, profit maximization is at the point where MC equals AC, which you would go from that point, go up, then go left, and this would now be our box of super normal profit, and we'll label that up, label that P max, representing the price at where we profit maximize, and label that Q max, which is the quantity where we profit maximize. Now, where do we revenue maximize? We revenue maximize where MR equals what? MR equals 0. So how do we show that? So we go where MR equals 0, which is obviously where MR intersects the x-axis, and then you just go straight up from there until you hit your AR curve, and then you go left, and now that would be the P-rev, I would say. P-rev being the price at where we revenue maximize. Now, as you can see, if you're looking at the box super normal profit, the profit maximization box is obviously the purple box, and the revenue maximization box would be the red box. So as you can see, when you're revenue maximizing, the quantity is slightly higher, price is slightly lower. There's thousands of different things you talk about here. So like consumer welfare is improved. You can even add in other business objectives like sales maximizing, allocative efficiency, dynamic efficiency, allocative productive efficiency, just to contrast the things. And with my Edexcel students, I'm always banging on about learning examples, real world application, industries, different countries, fact files. The reason is, you get questions like this, refer to an industry, and if you're not using as much and it's all from your knowledge, there's obviously no context here, you need to know really decent industries. Like, I think what a lot of students did for this, when I remember back in the days, banking, whenever my students, because a lot of students know about banks, it's a good industry to refer to, but you need to have any sort of industry you want, you need to have an industry to refer to. And with regards to industries, that is one reason why, that could be one of your points, that we revenue maximize over sale maximizing depending on the industry. As in different industries, it may be impossible to like profit maximize, and it may be like a valid objective to revenue maximize, vice versa. And another big one that comes to mind when you're thinking about why would firms revenue maximize over profit maximizing? Regulation. Think about the CMA. CMA obviously does not want consumers being exploited, and will find, they'll name and shame firms that exploit consumers, that have that monopoly power to exploit consumers. Thus, if a firm is revenue maximizing, as we can see on the diagram, they have a lower price. They don't restrict quantity as much, there's less scarcity in the market, thus meaning that they're less likely to be caught up by regulatory bodies, there's not less likely to be named and shamed. Like, with being named and shamed, why does that affect the firm? It could affect brand image, therefore reduce demand, therefore reduce revenues, reduce profits, etc, etc. But yeah, so with revenue maximizing, they're less likely to be regulated or like named and shamed by regulatory bodies like the CMA. And a big one here would, of course, be the principal agent problem, where large firms would usually revenue maximize and smaller firms are more likely to profit maximize due to things like the divorce of ownership and control. And then if you wanted to do, you could do a paragraph saying you disagree with the statement and saying why profit maximization is a more realistic business objective. You could just relate it back to the classical economic assumption. What is a classical economic assumption? That firms are profit maximizers, thus will profit maximize. Then also, again, is to do with the industry. If you think about something like Tesco, a legal monopoly, or like any sort of monopoly industry, a firm that has monopoly power is very likely to profit maximize. Why? They can exploit that monopoly power, they can use that monopoly power to charge higher prices, gain high profits, etc, etc. And that's just a brief summary of some points I would go into for this 25 mark question.